the final part of this series, we're going to look at changing weapons. So when we've got a lightsaber and a gun both in our inventory, we're going to look at being able to change between those two weapons. So what we're going to need to do, we're going to need to make a new input in our project settings. We're then going to check when this button is pressed, so the change weapon button is pressed. We're going to need to check what the current weapon is. We're then going to have to check whether we're holding the weapon we want to swap to, and then if so, change the weapon. Quite a simple process, but make sure you pay attention through this because there's a couple of little things we're going to have to change and edit, which is going to be quite important. So let's start off by making that new input. So click on edit, go down to project settings, and we're going to go to inputs here. Now we're going to make a new action mapping, so click that plus, and we're going to call it change weapon. Now this is up to you what you want to bind this weapon to. I'm going to bind this to mouse wheel down. So mouse wheel down there. Well, actually, I'm going to bind it to middle mouse button. So I'm going to click my middle mouse button to change the weapon. Up to you how you want to do this. So your choice. So once you've got your action mapping set up, you'll be good to go. Close that down, and let's open up our Jedi. Now let's go below this, right click, and we're going to do an action input, and we're going to look for change weapon. There it is. Now when we press this, we want to check what weapon we're currently holding. So let's have a look. Let's start off with a branch. Now we're going to check if the held weapon, get held weapon, pull a strand equals. We're going to check first of all if the held weapon is a lightsaber, or in this case, sorry, saber is what I set mine to. And if it's saber, we need to swap to the next weapon. So if we're holding a saber, we're going to then check another branch actually. We're going to check if we're holding the blaster. Get holding blaster, say yes. If we're holding the blaster, that means brilliant, we can change weapon. It's a little bit unique for the lightsaber because we also want to check with another branch. I'll tell you what, actually we'll use an and here. We also want to check if the lightsaber is on, because if the lightsaber is on, we're not going to allow them to change the weapon. Can we use a not? We can. So check if the lightsaber is not on, and check if they're holding the blaster. So I'm going to undo that and plug that in. There we go. So check if we're holding the blaster. Check if the lightsaber is not on, using a not gate there. And if that's the case, now we can change weapons. So we're going to do set visibility of the lightsaber hilt to off, and we're going to set visibility of the blaster pistol to on, and then we're going to set held weapon to blaster. Nice and easy. So we now need to do the opposite. So let's come down. We will do another branch. We've only got 2 weapons in the game, so we're just going to double check what it is we're swapping to. We're going to check if the held weapon is equal to blaster. And if it is, perfect, that means we're swapping to a lightsaber. Now the same thing again, we need to check with another branch. If we are actually holding the lightsaber, and if we are, we can then swap to it. Perfect. So I'm going to just copy the code that we've done above. So I've copied the visibility and the set, pop it underneath. We can be a little bit more efficient really here, and we can actually plug in the old variables, make it a little bit more efficient. And instead of setting the lightsaber as invisible, we're going to set it as visible, and now set the invisible sorry, the blaster pistol to invisible. Then change the set to saber. We're changing to saber. And in theory, that should work. So let's give that a go. So I'm going to pick up my blaster. That should be working. Perfect, it is. Now hopefully I can do this first time. I'm going to go and get my lightsaber. Okay, so it's not quite right yet. But I can swap between them. So I've got my lightsaber. Swap to my pistol. Oh, that's an issue. So we also need to do that. Because even though we can't use the lightsaber, we can ignite it. So, lightsaber works. You can block. Go to the pistol. There we go. So, it's somewhat working, but there's some issues there. So you can see that if I'm holding the blaster pistol, it makes it so when I pick up the lightsaber, it doesn't hide the blaster pistol. So we need to make sure that it does that as well. And then also we need to make it so we can't ignite the lightsaber while holding the blaster pistol. So, this part of the code is actually working. Change weapon. Haven't got to touch that again. That should be working. So, let's have a look. So with the lightsaber, what we can do is make sure that when we pick up the lightsaber, here, I believe. Is that right? Yes, that is right, sorry. If we pick up a lightsaber, we're going to set the visibility of the blaster pistol to false. So it changes it. And then the same thing from here, set visibility of the lightsaber to false. So now when we pick these up, it's going to turn off the old one, so it's not going to double up and hide each other like it did when we picked that up. So let's double check that works. I'm not going to force myself to run up there again. So let's put a lightsaber on the floor here. So pick up the blast pistol. Perfect. Pick up the lightsaber. Perfect. Swap. Perfect. Working. So one last thing. That's all we need to do. We need to go back to our Jedi and we just need to make sure that if we're holding, or if we press E to ignite the lightsaber, we've also got to check that we're holding the lightsaber. So, holding the lightsaber there. So we're going to check get held weapon. Check that is equal to saber. So make sure the saber's in our hand. Get an AND gate here. Plug it in. And replace that. Let's give that a go. So in theory this should work. Pick up a blaster. We can shoot the blaster. I'm going to try and change weapon. I can't change weapon because I haven't actually picked up the lightsaber. That's perfect. Let's go pick up the lightsaber. Brilliant. Ignite the lightsaber. Can swing. Block. Let's quickly just pose to that robot there. Can I change weapon? Can't change weapon because my lightsaber is active. So let's change back and let's try and ignite my lightsaber. Brilliant. I can't do it. But I can when I'm holding it. So that is now working perfectly. So that wasn't that hard to do. There wasn't that many steps. It was just making one quick function down the bottom there, which granted is a little bit complicated. But then it was just adding a little addition to different parts of the code, such as the pickup weapon and the turn on / off of the lightsaber there. And that should conclude this series of tutorials. So you should have a functioning blaster rifle or a weapon of your choice, which should fire. You should have a melee weapon, which you can pick up. There we go. You should have a robot, which has just been quickly dispatched by myself. You should have a robot that follows you, or an enemy AI that follows you around, and can shoot at you, and you can attack. It can also damage you, and you can deflect those bullets, or block those bullets at least. And that should all be working. You should be able to switch between those weapons. You should be able to destroy the enemy with either weapon you want. and after this video that should all be working. If any of that isn't working, then obviously all the videos are there for you to go back through and double check if you followed each of the bits of code correctly. And that's all I'm going to show you for this tutorial. Now, what we've done here is fairly simple. Let's take this lightsaber for example. This swing animation, very basic. So it's up to you to make that more complicated. For example, something that might just add quite a lot to that, if I go to the swing. Now, if you imagine swinging, you will normally pull back and then swing forward. You won't just swing forward. You get a little bit of force between it. So, why not do that? If I add a little bit of force up here, let's move that up a little bit. So now I should pick up the lightsaber. Can you see that? It's quite quick, but I swing backwards before doing that. So that adds a little bit to it. Realistically, you also wouldn't just swing forward. You'd swing a little bit to the side and then swing inwards. So it's up to you to use your... Let me just get rid of that. It's up to you to use your knowledge now to go into this game and change the things that we've done. So add a better swing animation. Make a better swing animation. Add sounds to this game, because right now there's no sounds here. When I fire my blaster rifle, there's no sounds. The only sound we got in the game currently is the robot exploding. There's no animation when those bullets hit the wall. So maybe if I go into the let's have a look. Let's look at the blueprints. Let's look at the Jedi blaster shot. If these casts fail, then maybe we need to spawn an emitter at location at the blaster shot. So let's get world location, plug that in, and we're going to get the bullet spark and then destroy the actor. See if that works. Doesn't quite work because I believe we're actually blocking the actor. So if we go over here, plug this in up there instead, now instead of just hitting the wall and doing nothing, there we are, when the blaster hits the wall, it makes these sparks, which looks really nice. It adds a lot to the game. When I fire this blaster, there's no recoil. Should there be? Maybe there should, maybe there shouldn't. Use the timeline to actually use the timeline to actually add that in. Add your recoil to the game. I've shown you the basics here, and I've given you the foundation to create much more complex things. So it's up to you to research these things, add your own information, add your own knowledge, play around with it, break it, try and see if you can make something. Go into this and actually do your own thing with it. And I'd heavily recommend, if you're going to make a game, don't use a lightsaber, because I can imagine Disney won't be too happy with you doing that. So remember intellectual property, remember to add your own spin to these things and actually make your own creations. As always, if anything that you've done here isn't working, go back through these videos, and at worst, add a comment and see and ask me and tell me if something's wrong. Otherwise, thanks for watching the tutorial, and I hope it all works.